All right, Ross Tucker is here at Ross Tucker NFL, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, former NFL offensive lineman, former Ivy League offensive lineman. He's also doing games for CBS this year and Eagles preseason. Hey, Ross, if you were playing now and you went to the Ivies, would you have portaled out?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So for people that don't know, in the Ivy League, once you graduate, you are not allowed to play sports anymore. They actually have several rules that other leagues don't have. It's very annoying. Like the Ivy League champion is not allowed to go to the FCS playoffs.
Right.
Even though while I was in college, our basketball team almost went to the Sweet 16. Our lacrosse team won the national championship 3 out of my 4 years. I'm like, so why do these guys get to play in tournament? But it never made any sense. They say they want to make the Ivy League championship the be-all, end-all. I'll give you a great story about this, Kev. So my junior year, we had a really good basketball team, and we had a sophomore on the basketball team. His name was Chris Young, 6'11". He was the Ivy League Player of the Year, okay, for basketball. It just so happens that Chris Young also played baseball and got drafted really high by the Pirates. And so the way baseball is, if you go to the first day of classes, like that team loses your rights, right? So we were all waiting to see what happened. He ends up signing with the Pirates, I believe, the day before classes started. And so he was he got like $3 million or something. Yeah. But part of his deal was they were going to pay for him to finish school, right?
Pretty good.
Because he had 2 more years left. So, dude, Kev, picture going to a college basketball game, and in the third row, because the Ivy League is the only league, getting back to that point, where if you're professional in one sport, you can't be amateur in another. So like Ricky Williams or guys or Russell Wilson would be like a college football player, but then they play minor league baseball in the offseason. In the Ivy League, you're not allowed to do that. So Kev, we're sitting in the third row of a college basketball game, Ivy League, and there's a 6'11" guy in the third row that was the player of the year in the conference. He's still a student, and he's not allowed to be out there. Wow. And he's just like, let's go, guys. Let's go. Like, what are we doing here?
And I believe Chris Young is now a successful baseball general manager. Is that correct?
He is. Yeah. Very. Yeah. And so to answer your question, I think I would have portaled out. Because, I would have so that's the thing. I would have graduated first, and then if I had that 1 more year of eligibility, I would have gone to a higher level because, that was the dream, right? Like, even if I had gotten scholarship offers from Duke or Wake Forest or Northwestern, I probably would have taken that. My scholarships, I was a late bloomer, so my scholarships were William & Mary, Delaware, and I thought, if I go to Princeton or Harvard because of football, like I got to do it. But I would have loved it. Although, what's interesting? I live here in central Pennsylvania. I always want to go to Penn State. Yeah. And it kills me. My rookie year in Washington, LeVar Arrington and Kenny Watson, all these guys are saying to me, dude, you would have been, you and Kareem McKenzie would have been our 2 best offensive linemen. I was like, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear that. But I'll say this. If I went to Penn State, especially like as a preferred walk-on, 1,000%, Kev, I redshirt. So what I always say to people is, every guy's body is a ticking time bomb. You don't know when it's going to go off. Mine went off. Well, I had a back surgery after my 4th year, but then I herniated disc in my neck, bruised my spinal cord on the wedge, by the way, kickoff return against the Ravens my 7th year. That's the end of my career. But the way I look at it is, if I went to Penn State or Miami or wherever, right, that's 1 more year I would have played for free as opposed to getting paid because they would have redshirted me. So I'm glad I went to the Ivy League for a lot of reasons, but one of which I was 4 and done. Most offensive linemen were redshirting 5 years. I made the NFL at age 22.
Yeah, love that. All right, so you just ranked the top offensive lines in the NFL, and 1 through 32. And so I want to do 3 of the good, 3 of the bad. Basically, the way I view it is 3 of the top half, 3 of the bottom half, and how they change the fortunes of a contender. I want to start with the Lions, who have done as good a job. Like, every team says we want to be tough, we want to build through the lines, we want to have an identity, and nobody lived it like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Like, no one has ever, I would say there's very, very, very few teams in history who have created an identity that they wanted in their image this quickly. When you think about what the Lions were for years, and by the way, every GM and coach, they always gave the same spiel. Well, it's Detroit. We got to be tough. We got to be tough. And then nobody did it. Nobody ever built this kind of line. What have the Lions done that have impressed you, and how does it change their team?
Well, you know what's funny about them too is they really don't care what everybody else thinks.
Really, truly.
Right? Like last year's draft, when they took Jahmyr Gibbs, everybody was like, wait, what? You don't take a running back that high. Then they take an off-the-ball linebacker in Jack Campbell, and then even in the second round, Laporta's kind of an undersized tight end. Branch was kind of an undersized. What is he? Is he a nickel safety? I have a healthy respect for the Lions, basically just saying, we're just going to take guys that we think are really good football players and play the way we want to play. And we'll let you guys worry about positional value and all of that stuff and where we just want to get good players. Yeah. So I love that. I mean, obviously, Taylor Decker predates them. Yep. Ragnow predates them. So they started in a pretty good place, if we're being honest, right? Mm-hmm. Even Jonah Jackson, who's now he predates them. So as far as getting a first-time GM and a first-time head coach, from an offensive line building standpoint, boy, they had some really good pieces in place already. So I think the previous regime deserves some credit. However, the Lions resisted the urge to take other guys when they took Penei Sewell, right? And Penei Sewell has been an absolute difference maker for them. So what they really have now is they have three guys that are really high end, I would say, top 10 guys at both tackles and at center. And then Jonah played really well. I think Zeitler will be solid for them this year. And Graham Glasgow, they brought him back. I think he's just okay, but kind of fits with what they're doing there. I mean, the guards are the weakest part of that line, but I wouldn't call either guard a question mark, which is why I put them in the elite category, because I don't really have a question about their line.
I went to Penei Sewell's first padded practice ever, and you're talking about identity here. And he had not obviously been in pads for 9 months, something like that. He probably didn't play the bowl game. I don't remember. And they said, how was it? And he said, putting pads on and hitting was like water in the desert. Okay. So then I see Dan Campbell like 30 minutes later, and I told him that's what Penei Sewell said. And he just goes, that is awesome. And he was so jazzed about that because he knew that's the kind of guy he wants on his team. Like, that's it. That's the identity you want. I always think about that when I think about Penei Sewell and the identity that the Lions have built. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words. Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. I want to talk about the Chiefs here for a second, because it is such a different job to block for Patrick Mahomes, the way he extends plays. And it's only going to be heightened here because of the plays Hollywood Brown can make downfield, because obviously Xavier Worthy, he can catch and run, but he can also just be a burner. You have to, and this has gotten out of Mahomes' game the last couple of years, because his average depth of target is getting lower and lower because he's getting the ball out quicker. Frankly, because of the way defenses play him, and then because of the weapons he's had. But blocking for Mahomes and knowing there's something wild going on behind you, like, how does that change their mindset, you think?
It's a really good question. I think, first of all, he's very fortunate in that they have the best interior trio in the NFL, right? And so that's a good place to start. Yep. Where no matter how much he runs around, seems like a lot of times he's more evading an edge guy, and like he can step up and slide one way or the other because of that. And just by the way, as an aside, Kev, to what you were saying about Penei Sewell, Trey Smith's one of my 5 favorite players in the NFL. You want to talk about a mindset, a tone setter. Trey Smith is out there trying to put people down, and I have a healthy appreciation for that. I think that and I don't know this for a fact. I haven't been to Chiefs training camp. I think they need to have drills where because as an offensive lineman, you sort of have an internal clock in pass pro, and it's like after 4 seconds, you're kind of like almost like you start looking like, is the ball really not out yet? Like, what is going on? I think those guys have been taught, and Andy Heck does a heck of a that was not even intentional. Andy does a heck of a job making sure those guys know, hey, who we have Patrick. Like, you got to hold on to your blocks longer. And there's a second part of that, which is hold on to your blocks longer, but don't hold. Yeah. Because he might escape right, he might escape left. And just based on training camp, based on the training camp clips I've seen, the only plays they're calling in Chiefs camp right now are like 70-yard bombs to people. So those guys better be able to hold up. And they're going to, left tackle's a major question mark. And I thought Jawan Taylor was a significant disappointment given the contract they gave him last year. So we'll see. We'll see how the tackles hold up this year.
Yeah, I agree with that interior line. Those are dogs. Those are absolute dogs. And to your point, like, it seems like they're not even calling plays. They're just saying, let's just do a 70-yard bomb every single play. It's the only clip I see. Browns, same thing. The Browns, it's a different deal. You have them in the good category, and Deshaun Watson is the worst of these three quarterbacks we're going to talk about. But it seems like they keep him upright. They're going to give him an opportunity to be whatever the best version of him is in 2024. The run game can be solid. What did they do with this Browns line?
Well, so first of all, if Deshaun Watson isn't good this year, he's just not going to be, right? It's been a long time now at this point. And so what's crazy about that is he's under contract for 2 more years. And they're probably pretty much going to know after this year, whether or not he can ever get back to being close to what he was before. He's in a pretty good situation. They got Judy for him. Obviously, as you and I are recording this, there's the Ayuk rumors are out there. I thought DeJuan Jones played very well at right tackle in place of Conklin last year. My question for the Browns is losing Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan, Kev, I had 9 different offensive line coaches during my time in the NFL. And I can tell you there's a pretty big difference between the really good ones and the ones that aren't so good. I think it makes a difference in the outcome of games. I thought that the Browns did the wrong thing by just letting Bill Callahan go to be with his son in Tennessee. If head coaches are worth these multiple first-round picks or whatever people have gotten in trades, Belichick and whoever over the years, right? Gruden, arguably the best offensive line coach in the NFL, he's not worth a 7th-round pick. He's not worth something. If I were the Browns, I would have said, listen, totally got it. You want to go be with your son in Tennessee, totally respect it. We want you to be able to do that. But we have you under contract, and you are the best at the most important position coach in the league, right? O-line position coaches, most important position coach in the league. You're the single number 1 guy. We're not just giving you away. My guess is maybe the owners didn't want to set the precedent of trading draft choices for position coaches, but I would love to have seen, like let's say Bill Callahan was on the open market and could have gone to any team. There are teams that would have traded a draft pick for him. He's more valuable than some of these kids that get drafted in the 7th round for sure.
Can you tell me the difference between a good offensive line coach, like what he would teach you, what he would do to make you better, and a bad one who maybe doesn't teach you? I'm like, I've heard Chris Long talk about this a lot, but it's like a lot of position coaches in the NFL are just the coach's buddy, or they're kind of moved around. And this is not necessarily O-line coach, but like they're kind of moved around because they used to be the wide receivers coach and then they got demoted and now they're coaching running backs. They don't really know the position. Like, can you just take me through the difference between a good O-line coach and a bad one?
Yeah, and I would say too, in general, I think position coaches are way more important or valuable than people realize. I can remember one year where our running backs could not pick up a blitz to save their life, and they didn't really know what they were doing most of the time.
Right.
And the next year, we had a new running back coach, and it was the same guys. It was the same two running backs. I don't think they missed a blitz pickup all year. That's how, and just that one position coach. Offensive line, there's several different aspects of it. If you are an offensive line coach that is given personnel autonomy, there's a wide variance in the acumen, I would say, of offensive line coaches to know who should really be out there and who shouldn't. Sometimes guys will put people out there that have potential or physical ability, but they don't have the other things that you need to excel there. So that's a big part of it, is whether, the personnel decisions. Then it's like anything else in life. There's the attention to detail of both technique and scheme, assignments, right? And some, it's interesting too. Some of it is because like the more respected and more experienced line coaches are more willing to like call a guy out if he's messing up. Whereas sometimes the younger, less experienced, less pelts on the wall offensive line coaches, they don't want to get the number 4 overall pick mad at them. So they might not come down on them as hard. It's about standards, right? I can remember Dante Scarnecchia when we were in New England, Kev, that just his individual period, he was a hard ass. And his individual period, we would run up and down the field, outside zone right, outside zone left, inside zone. I mean, I almost threw up every day in individual period in New England. And people don't realize, like I see these like college guys that are like 332 or whatever. I was in New England 05 and then 06 training camp. And I would say, I think Logan Mankins, maybe at 312, was our heaviest offensive lineman. I mean, Matt Light, 302. Copen, 292. Steve Neal, 303. I was like 308. Like a lot of these guys, you could see their abs. I mean, we could run. We were in shape. And I think that's one reason why the Patriots kind of wore people down in games, because their offensive linemen were athletic and in great shape. And part of that was because Scarnecchia was just such a hard ass on both never messing up mentally and being in ridiculous shape. And I think if you start with those two, plus he knew, like you could probably look it up, but if you ever watch him, he'll say this: here's what I want from an offensive lineman. They got to be smart. They got to be tough, and they need to be athletic enough, right? Like he doesn't need freak athletes, but you got to be athletic enough to be able to do certain things.
I completely agree with you about the conditioning part of it. I think it was Julian Edelman who said, when you get to New England, you run that hill, and there's a lot of guys, whether they come from the NFL, another NFL team, or college, and they say, what are we doing, man? We're running like we're in high school, like we can do ourselves. And then in January, no one's laughing at running that hill. No one is laughing because they're wearing down teams who don't get in shape like the Patriots do. And I don't think anyone realizes how important that is in the narrative of the Patriot run.
They do so many little things, or they did so many little things. When I was there, the end of the 05 season, we would practice on the game field almost every day. And it was horrendous, like horrendous. It was basically, I want to say after the year, the field coordinator, whatever they're called, greens coordinator, he had been so ripped by people that I think he resigned, but he was literally just doing what Belichick told him to do. It was basically painted mud.
Yeah.
And it was terrible, but it was our terrible.
Yeah.
So we practiced on it every day. We knew what cleats to wear. We knew the issue. We played week 17 that year. We played the Dolphins. Those guys came out before the game. They're all like looking at their shoes. They're looking at the field like this is BS. First playoff game, we're playing the Jaguars. Same thing. Like before the game, they're not even doing their normal pregame routine. They're like checking their shoes. They're all pissed off, which was exactly what Belichick wanted. Exactly. Just one little, like everything was like a little edge And that was legal. Although I think the NFL now like has some type of like standard for field.
PA, I think. Yeah. What is the most tired you've ever been after a training camp practice?
Most tired?
Yeah. Like, what was the practice where you're just like, oh my God, like I cannot believe I just went through that?
The first one that jumps out to me is Buffalo. Mike Mularkey, 04. There was a couple things that happened in that practice. So number one, he just had us doing like goal line rep after rep after rep. He was testing us. And then I think it was the same practice, but it's 04 St. John Fisher College.
Was just there.
I was very annoyed by this D tackle named Oliver Gibson.
Okay.
So at the end of one play, because he would just like hold my jersey and not let me get up to the linebacker. So at the end of this play, I was like, I'm sick of it. And so he was holding me, and I just started swinging. And I'm like, we get in a huge fight, right? Which is crazy tiring. Like, I have no idea how boxers do it, because you're in a football fight. It's 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. You feel like it was 2 hours. That's how tiring it is. So they separate us, Kev.
Yeah.
And I'm walking back to the huddle, and I don't know what possessed me. The only time I ever did this in my whole career, I stopped, I ran right back at him, and I smoked him again.
Oh, my God.
I ran right back at Oliver Gibson, and I smoked him again, just started punching him again, and he wasn't expecting it. So now I just, whatever. And Mularkey kicks me out of practice. So super tiring day, double fights. I get kicked out of – you don't get kicked out of practice very often in the NFL.
No.
And I run in there, and I shower, which, by the way, so the two funny things about that. One is Mularkey then tells the team, that's not what we're looking for. We don't want guys that do stuff like that. What, blah, 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 right? Yeah. He comes in after practice and finds me. He's like, hey, Tuck. I said, yeah. I said, sorry. And he's like, yeah, I know. He said, I just want you to know, I told the team that we're not looking for guys like that. We don't want guys that will attack their teammates and go back after them. And I said, I know, I'm sorry. He's like, no. I just want you to know you are exactly what we're looking for, which I thought was funny. And then I had like Sam Adams and Pat Williams and those guys that didn't really like to practice. They were like, yo, Tuck, let's start a fight 5 minutes into practice tomorrow. Like they thought, is this the deal? Like you can get kicked out of practice if you start a fight. They were so excited the next day to try to start a fight with me or somebody so they could get out of practice the next day.
It reminds me of like a better coach, but Jimmy Johnson used to joke about Miami where he'd have to go to the media and say, oh man, that's not what, some player would say something in media and say, oh, we don't want that here. And then he would make him team captain. He'd say, great job. I'm so glad you clowned Oklahoma or something like that. That is really funny, the double game that the coaches have to play. Thank you for that. On the other side with some of these O-lines, I want to just quickly touch on Dallas. And I think that we've all been conditioned to think that Dallas is the strength. The line is always going to be a strength of Dallas because they have been for so long. Even when they were mediocre, they still had good offensive lines. I mean, they've been mediocre for stretches over the past, let's say, 25 years. But the lines have always been good. You have them in the bottom half. Why?
First time since I've been doing this. First time probably in 10 years. I mean, they've had such a good run.
Yep.
And by the way, they deserve a ton of credit. I mean, they drafted Tyron Smith. They drafted Travis Frederick. They drafted Zach Martin. They drafted Tyler Smith. That's the thing that's so annoying about the Cowboys contract situations. You're drafting good players. That's a good thing. Micah Parsons, freak show. CeeDee Lamb, fantastic. Stop complaining. Every other team out there wants your problems of having to give extensions to these fantastic players that you draft. It's like maddening, okay? But they moved on from Biotish. They let him go. They let Tyron Smith go in free agency. So left tackle and center are huge question marks. And we'll see. Maybe Guyton's good. Maybe Cooper Beebe wins the center job and he's good. Right tackle, Terrence Steele had a bad year coming off that injury. What we do know is they still have the best pair of guards in the NFL in Zach Martin and Tyler Smith. But I can't put you in the top half of the league if I have legitimate question marks at the other three spots. The thing about offensive line in the NFL, Kevin, is it's nice to have elite players. Mm-hmm. It's nice to have Pro Bowl players. But what you really can't have is below average players, right? It's more important to have 5 average guys than it is. I'd almost rather have 5 average guys than 3 all pros and 2 below average guys. You can kind of game plan around 1, but if you have 2, you're screwed, right? And even 1, a lot of times you're only as good as your weakest link. So you'd rather have 5 guys that are average than 4 stars and 1 guy that stinks, because that one guy that stinks might be the reason why you have bad plays and lose the game.
Interesting. Fascinating. Quickly on SF and Miami, are either of these teams going to be worse than we think because of the line?
They both have some question marks. Yeah. What's so interesting is, like, I saw where people said, the Dolphins gave up the 4th least amount of sacks last year.
Tua's time to throw is 2.3 seconds. He gets rid of the ball instantaneously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they got the number 1 yards per carry. Okay, so how much of that is Mostert and Devin Achane are like freak shows that get 80 yards? You know what I mean? Like, people, it's context. People that think everything is a statistical equation are wrong. I look at yards per carry. I look at the pressure rate. Like, I look at that stuff. But you also have to look at the skill position players. You have to look at the scheme. And both the Niners and Dolphins offensive lines are greatly helped by their scheme. Greatly. And that's the genius of the Shanahan system. It's a lot of outside zone. It's a lot of bootlegs, a lot of play action. You're not asking guys to do straight drop back pass 30 times a game, because I don't think either one of these lines would hold up if that was the case. They try to get guys that they think are a good fit for what they do. I think as long as Armstead stays healthy in Miami, and I'm assuming Trent Williams will be fine in San Francisco, I think they'll be okay. Miami in particular, and I know the early reports they got enough guys that I've seen play. When Wynn comes back, Robert Jones, Eichenberg, Driscoll, they got enough guys that I think are good enough that they won't be the reason why you lose. You don't need linemen that are the reason why you win. You just can't have linemen that are the reason why you lose. Nobody ever really wanted me to be starting, but they always would have preferred somebody that looked better or better one-on-ones. But I also wasn't going to be the reason my team lost. Like, I was always going to block the right guy, stay on him, whatever. And that's what you need. And I think the Dolphins have enough guys inside that they'll be okay.
Interesting. All right, let's do the staples here. We're going to start with badasses. This is the simplest question you're going to get all training camp. Who is the most badass person you ever played with? Like, the guy who, I always say, if an alien came down and said, "Show me a football player," you're taking him to who?
Mike Sellers.
Oh my God!
I don't know if you remember Mike Sellers.
I love this. I love everything about this already.
He is the perfect answer to this question. And I'd be surprised if anybody that ever played with him answered anyone other than Mike Sellers. He was a 285-pound fullback who, by the way, was playing pro football as a teenager in the PFL. He would run down on kickoff team and murder people. Nobody wanted to mess with Mike Sellers. Mike Sellers, easy answer to that question. Total badass.
Wow. Okay, I'm looking at this right now. He was born in Frankfurt, West Germany. He played for the Eskimos for 3 years, played for Washington in 1998. Wow. Pro Bowl in 2008 with Washington. I love this. I don't think I've ever gotten a badass, Russ, who I don't remember. You gotta look up some Mike Sellers highlights or talk to other guys that played with him. We're gonna get some Getty images on Mike Sellers, just absolutely destroying dudes. All right, we do something called one rep back. If you could take any play, any level of football back and relive it, do it better, do it different, what are you going with?
I'm trying to. I was trying to think if. In high school, we fumbled in the district semifinals senior year at the 2-yard line in overtime.
Oh my
but
God.
I didn't do anything wrong there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, does it count if I could have said to the quarterback right before the
Yeah.
play,
Yeah.
don't fumble the
Don't
snap?
fumble the snap. You have a time machine. You can do whatever you want. Just go back there and
Okay, then that's definitely the answer.
Well, that was Steve Young's was similar to that in that there was some huge. I'm sorry, Steve, I don't remember the what you're talking about. There was a huge. I think they're playing the Cowboys in the playoffs. There's a huge pre-snap penalty from somebody else, and his was, I would love to just be able to just tell the guys, don't do the pre-snap penalty, and then they would have beaten the Cowboys.
1,000%. Senior year district semifinals. Conroe and Weiser High School. They had beaten us for the league championship. It was a rematch in the playoffs. And we're at the 2-yard line. We held them to a field goal in overtime. So we're about to win. We're about to win the game. Young quarterback fumbles the snap. It was rainy. I would have just said to him in the center, "Hey, make sure you get the snap first." Because we were going in. I want my NFL play is like an idiot on Thanksgiving. I was starting at left guard for the Cowboys, and I tried to cut Bruce Smith when he pinched inside, which there was no reason to do that. He avoided me and sacked Chad Hutchinson. So it's just annoying because it's Thanksgiving. There's like 50 million people watching the game, and I gave up. It's like, although I will say this, Kev, Bruce Smith has 200 career sacks. He has the NFL record. Mm-hmm. I like to tell people, it only would have been 199 if it wasn't for me.
There you go.
Without me, Bruce Smith doesn't get 200 sacks.
That's exactly right. Look at the positives. We're doing something new called, I don't even know what we're going to call it. We're going to workshop it. Maybe we'll come out of this segment. Funniest guy you ever played with at the NFL level. Who was it?
Ooh. You know who's really funny is Matt Light.
Really?
Spent a lot of time around Matt Light.
I have not. I have met him a couple of times.
Matt Light is hilarious. Like he's almost like Kenny Mayne-ish.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Deadpan,
like
Deadpan,
when
sure.
Kenny Mayne would do these videos or these segments that were like a spoof, right?
Yes.
That's Matt Light. And in fact, I remember one time during training camp in 2006, it was the opening night of Talladega Nights.
Right.
Okay. So we go to this barbecue joint, and it's basically the O-line and Brady and Matt Castle. Okay. So we go to a barbecue joint, which, by the way, Brady sprinted over to pay my rib bill.
There we go. Attaboy,
I was
Tommy.
like, you don't need to do that. That was the first time I saw Brady chug. It was Brady against a couple of rookie offensive linemen, and we were betting on it. And I bet on the Notre Dame kid, and the veteran guys looked at, because my first time in New England, they were like, and Brady just like it couldn't have come out faster if he just poured it out like that. And he smashed it, like spiked it like a Gronk spike before Gronk was even in college, probably, or whatever. But then anyway, Talladega Night starts at like 9:00. We didn't get there till maybe 9:25, but Light had called ahead. They had, this is what happens when you win back-to-back Super Bowls. They had 3 rows, the best 3 rows in the theater, just totally reserved for us. There's people standing on the side that bought tickets, but these rows are reserved for us. I'm sitting we walk in 30 minutes after it's supposed to start. They held it for us. And I'm sitting right behind Brady and Castle, and Brady has his hat on, pulled down like this, but it was already dark. So the people in front of him are turning around like, yo, I think that might be Brady. So anyway, I watched Talladega Nights opening night with the O-line and Brady and Matt Castle in 2006. We had the whole weekend off because Belichick wanted to go to Harry Carson's Hall of Fame induction weekend.
Wow. Matt Light's got a lot of juice in New England, man. He's getting those rows set up. Awesome.
He's a hilarious dude. He was always doing practical jokes.
Yeah.
And it was such a contrast with Scarnecchia.
Yes.
It was funny.
Would he ever do anything to you? Like prank, practical joke?
I don't think I was there long enough.
Yeah.
I was there like the second half of the 05 season.
Yeah.
And then 2006, I'm there the whole off season. During training camp, LaCharles Bentley, the Browns' big free agent addition, tore his knee up.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm second string center, Kev, and I'm supposed to do a 2-minute drill. And Scarnecchia instead puts in this other guy. And I'm thinking, well, no, today's my day to do 2-minute drill. That's not a good sign. So practice ends. Scarnecchia talks to all of us. And now I got to talk to him and be like, why'd you take away my reps? Mm-hmm. And we break it down. He says, Tuck, I need to talk to you. So, okay, I go over. He's like, he said, evidently we traded you to Cleveland during practice. And I had already been cut 2 or 3 times, Kevin. So I'm like, traded me for what? And he said, I don't know, probably a bag of balls. So I got to tell you, like, after you've already been cut a couple of times, being traded is like really cool. You're like, wow, they won me. They like me. They really like me. So anyway, that night right after that, I went in the cold tub and I talked to Cleveland and I was like, I'm just going to drive my car. They're like, no, you're our starting center. We don't want you to drive from Foxborough to Cleveland overnight. We'll ship it. We got a flight for you out of Providence, blah, blah, blah. So I was in the cold tub and Larry Izzo was like, what are you going to piss in the cold tub before you leave? And all the other guys are like, what? And I was like, I just got traded to Cleveland. I remember Brady was like reading the newspaper. He's like, wow. And then looked right back down. like sucks for you, dude.
Ross, this is everything I wanted it to be and more. Thank you so much. Everybody check him out. Ross Tucker Football Podcast at Ross Tucker NFL, CBS Eagles. Cannot thank you enough for coming on, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Love the show. Love all the stories we get out of people.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.